Welcome into Pac-12 Preview. Yes, put up a notice getting started a teeny bit late, bottom of the hour instead of top, but nonetheless, part of a press conference. Kenny Dillingham obviously wrapping up ASU spring after taking a breath from spring practice and all that good stuff. Yeah, so that was where I was at. Said I had an interview, but yes, we are getting rolling here at 10:30 and efforting, well, a little bit 10:32, 10:35 now. But that being said, so glad you can join me. I am Michael Caratino at Diablo00 on Twitter is the handle. You get a hold of me, or you can obviously leave comments here. I am efforting a guest in ASU assistant head coach. Scheduled this before I knew about the Kenny Dillingham presser, but Charlie Ragle should be joining me shortly. So again, going from there, talking spring ball. But man, what an awesome weekend we have in baseball and softball as well. Congrats to USC women's golf who won the Pac-12 tournament, and as a team they did very very well. As they want to say they shot 7 under in the I want to say they shot 7 under. Why is it? This is going to drive me nuts because I want to say it was 7 under, but yes, nonetheless, USC women's golf. To win the Pac-12 tournament. So, and that is their 8th crown, by the way. Yeah, Southern California. Actually, they were 15 under, not 7 under. Stanford was 7 under. Apologies. Yeah, they were 15 under par. They were 7 under on the last day to put the Lady Trojans on the golf course absolutely rolling. So again, hats off to them. So they finished first. Oregon, they were 14th in the country. So, and a lot of ranked teams in the country. Stanford, who was Oregon finished second. Pardon me. They were ninth in the country. They under Stanford, who was number one. They finished 7 under. Again, had a solid tournament, but USC, like I said, just went nuts at Papago Golf Course. Actually, it was hosted by ASU this year. So in, Tempe, Phoenix. But, yeah, and then U of A was 4th. They were 29th in the country. They were 1 over for the tournament. ASU, who was 11th in the country, finished 5th. They were 7 over for the tournament. And then you had Cal at 6th, who was ranked 36th in the country. They were 12 over. Oregon State was 15 over. The 28th ranked Bruins were 17 over and finished 8th. Finishing 9th is Washington at 24 over. Washington State at 10th. They were 29 plus 29, and then Colorado plus 33. But a 48 shot difference between first and 11th. But yeah, I mean, even a 7-shot difference or an 8-shot difference, I mean, from Stanford to USC. So the Trojans, again, putting on one hell of a run. And we have to congratulate them on that. And the Sun Devils actually have a freshman that finished second. So, and the individual. But like I said, we are so lucky right now because the wonderful, I call him friend, but that's because way back in the day when he was coaching high school, I kind of had to force my way in as a friend calling games, and a lot of his with the success. But Charlie Ragle joining me. What's up, Coach?
How we doing? Sorry I'm late, man. I was a little technical difficulties, but I got it hammered out.
Hey, man, if my computer doesn't freeze when I have a broadcast or the internet doesn't mess with me, Coach, it's not a complete day for me. So we're on the same page. That's all right. But so I mean, obviously you've been through many spring practices, and the first question I'm going to ask you is the difference between doing it at the high school level, especially once you started winning, having success, and obviously you've been around college for quite a while now. I mean, started down in Arizona, went to Cal, obviously Idaho State. But the biggest difference between high school spring practice and college spring practice?
Well, I think one, obviously here in Arizona, we're your t-shirts and shorts, so it's more than anything an elevated underwear Olympics, right? You get to see guys run around and what kind of athletes they are. But when you get to college, obviously putting on the pads is the major change, and going 15 practices over 5 weeks like we did that's a grind, and I think the biggest thing besides the physical piece of it is the mental piece, from the sense that these guys, there's no off days. Like, we're practicing and everybody sees us practicing on those Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays that we did this year. But, we were in here on those Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, meeting with the kids, watching the film of the practices, installing what we were going to put in the next practice. So it was really 6 days a week, nonstop for 5 weeks. And that's a lot to ask of the kids. And, I was really pleased with how they responded.
Yeah. And okay, so to piggyback off that, I want to get this one out of the way because obviously, I mean, you and I have talked, and I'm talking to a lot of coaches. The transfer portal is a way of life, but it being your staff's first spring, and I know Coach Dillingham has said it, you said it, all the coaches have said it. I mean, that message, you want guys that want to be there, that want to compete. But after the spring, if somebody feels that they're in a part of the depth chart they shouldn't be, they enter the transfer portal. Yes, going forward in college football, it's a way of life. But is it almost frustrating? And I don't like to use that word with you, as a coach, because I've said to Coach Dillingham and even Coach Iguano, you coaches don't take frustrating. You see something, a challenge, and you can make adjustments. You attack it. But is it frustrating with it being your guys' first spring that some guys have already hit the portal because, maybe they didn't feel where they should have been on the depth chart, and not that they don't want to put in the work, but they're starting from way further behind the 8 ball after one spring than they thought they should. How is it balanced for you as a coach and a coaching staff with that?
Well, I think that's college football in this day and age, whether you like it or you don't. We're not changing it, right? So, I mean, you gotta you got to be able to adapt and adjust, and I think that's critical. You know, again, it's the way the game is now, and so there's no excuses to be made. You just have to figure it out and adjust your roster accordingly. I think we felt good though, to be honest with you, where we're at after the spring. Um, excuse me. Where we're at. I think the guys that ended up leaving, you hate to see guys leave, most definitely, but everybody has to make decisions that they feel are best for them, and then obviously, Coach Dillingham and our staff has to make decisions that we feel are best for the program. And so, is it tough? Sure, but it's part of the game now, and you've got to be able to adapt and adjust.
Well, speaking of adapting and adjusting, you coming back from Idaho State, obviously Coach Amy coming down, but one of the players, obviously, on the offensive side of the ball, Xavier Guillory. I mean, this kid, you saw him obviously at Idaho State. And, Coach, I mean, I know receivers always say they catch everything, but literally in spring, I think it was almost more of a news story if a ball slipped through his hands or it wasn't close to him. I mean, he puts in the work. He has that talent. I know you as a coach, I know have always gone after those guys and had those types of players with that mindset. But what can you say about obviously his first spring here and adjusting to a new team?
Well, I think, it goes back to when I saw him at Idaho State. I knew this kid was different physically. How he prepared, his work ethic was elite. And I told him, I said, look, man, if you continue to work like this and do the things that you're doing, you'll have a chance to play on Sundays. And I felt that, and I knew that when we came here to Arizona State to have the ability to recruit him and get him here was going to be a major, feather in our cap, so to speak, by adding him to the roster. And he's just come out and worked, like I knew he would. And his work ethic is exceptional. And I think that's why he catches all those balls, because he spends time working at it, and it's not, I think it's a lesson for young people to understand that, if you put in the work, good things will happen. It doesn't just happen because you want it to happen. And he's a prime example of understanding hard work, going through some trials and tribulations in his life, and staying the course, continuing to work hard. And I just know that great things are ahead for him.
Yeah, and when you say put in the work, I think obviously I know I saw you, coordinating the special teams, but working with the defense. And man, you've known me for years, and you've talked to a million people, but the defensive side of my ball, even in this day and age of rules, which favors offense and a million points, right? But defense is my side of the ball, and I just seeing you work with the defense and the D line, and like what Coach Amy was doing and working with. I mean, again, Coach Ward, I love seeing him getting drills. And then after a minute or two saying, all right, you guys, I can't, I'm not in it with you, but I'm right here, because he's going all out. But just from the defensive side of the ball, where did you see the most growth in spring, and what did you like the most, players, coaching staff wise, on defense that you saw?
Yeah, I think that, I like what we do schematically first. I think Brian's approach to the game defensively is, something that I feel really good about. And, so I think what we're doing schematically is very beneficial, and will help us and allow us to get really, really top-notch players here that want to play in this scheme, especially as you look at the guys up front. But I thought, as we came together over the course of 15 practices and saw these guys really understand and start to do what we're asking them, just the little things about running to the football and really, given everything they've got, and just really pressing themselves to be an elite level defense that runs to the football no matter what. And then I think, as a philosophical and from an execution standpoint, they started to understand and execute the scheme, obviously the further we got into spring. And I think, with a couple of additions here and there on our defense, I think we got a chance to have a quality defense here this fall, better than I think what people are expecting.
Well, yes, expectations, of course. I mean, after last year, even though a new coaching staff comes in, and I know I said it to you at practice, but Coach Dillingham, you yourself, all the coaches, the energy that's out there. Obviously in recruiting, I know locally is big, recruiting in general is big, but you guys invited as a staff so many coaches and players out to watch the practice. And then even people in the community that could come out and watch. And again, me being, a little member of the media, getting to come out and obviously be a part of it. But to get all those people out there, and again, every day, like you said, that you had practice, to have that involvement, I know you're excited about the turnout, but were you surprised it was as big as it was? And how great was that just for you to get to interact with everybody?
Well, I wasn't surprised by how many people came out. I think that there's a lot of people in this community that want to see ASU football do well. And, I know we've got a lot of support of a lot of people. So, that's certainly a great feeling. Now, obviously, we know when the fall starts and September comes around, we got to win games, and that's what keeps people happy. But we know we've got a local level of support that probably hasn't been here in the history of ASU because of the local guys who have built relationships and ties over the course of 15, 20 plus years here in the Valley. So I think it starts with that, which is really nice. And then, just the ability of Coach Dillingham and his willingness to share. I mean, I think you got a bunch of high school coaches on this staff that, that's where we started our roots and trying to help these young guys and even the older veteran coaches come through and just share ideas and help people. I mean, that's what the game of football is about, is a brotherhood and helping coaches and helping players get better in all facets of life. And so, I think that Coach has got a great vision and philosophy behind that, and I couldn't agree with him more on that. And so it's just been awesome to be a part of that.
And well, he is Charlie Ragle, the assistant head coach and special teams coordinator. And yes, let's talk the X factor. Not so much that you and I talked about at the Super Bowl about, like you said, that's still my favorite line. Nobody comes to play college football to be the right guard, the blocking right guard on kickoff or on the extra point team. But the kicking game is what I want to get to. I mean, it seemed that Mr. Longhetto had a pretty solid spring. I know he transferred in, and it looks like he had a pretty solid spring, and I mean punting as well too. Which, by the way, side note, man, I love the fan involvement at the spring game and the challenges, but that's just cruel to ask fans to field punts, man. That's one of the hardest things to do, even if you're a football player. But I mean, all kidding aside, the kicking game. With Longhetto and the others, I mean, how do you feel? Where do you feel you're at this point after the spring?
Well, before I answer that, I hope that it gives a little more appreciation to the fans, understanding that it's not as easy as it looks. These guys out there catching the punts make it look easy. So maybe, if in the future, God forbid, we drop one, they'll have a little bit more sensitivity for us, going, hey, man, that's not that easy. But no, in all seriousness, felt like, with three veteran specialists, Snapper and Slater, Zellers, and then, as you mentioned, the punter, Josh Carlson, and then obviously Dario at the kicking responsibilities. With three 6-year guys, it played out just as I had expected it to. Those are veterans. They understand what they're trying to get accomplished. I think all three of them would like to have an opportunity to take a shot at the next level. And they prepare like that every day. So it's a real easy room to work with. And there's not a whole lot of prodding to get them to do the things that they need to do. And I think the results, indicate that when they stepped out on the field at every practice.
And then as you're going around looking at the different groups, I mean, and I ask this question not as a singling out, but how do you feel that each group in each room grew throughout the spring?
Well, I mean, and that's hard, because again, I could speak obviously to the specialists and the edges, but I'm not in those meeting rooms of all those other positions. I mean, I think collectively, I think you saw strides in every position group, and I think every coach would say that. But there's pluses, there's pros and cons in each group, including my own, and things that we've got to get accomplished throughout the summer to be where we want in the fall. And then we've got to go through fall camp and perform at a high level as well. So That's a hard question. And you know me, I like to try and always answer and give you the honest truth, or at least what I perceive it to be. That one's tough. I think, I think we've got a really good group of receivers. I think it's very talented. The running backs, we got thin towards the end, but I think we're capable across the board. I could go through all of them and give you my opinion, but I think that I'd be disingenuous to go through and say that, because I don't know all the little nuances in each room.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yes, you obviously you're busy. So now, what is? I know there's no real off season, but are you at least going to get a somewhat of a little break, like June-ish or July,
Yeah,
just to kind of?
we got about another 6 weeks of I'm in the office here working today, just getting I'm preparing speaking at the Arizona High School Coaches Clinic tomorrow, so I'm working on that. And I was on the road here locally recruiting yesterday, and then I'll head back out Sunday on the road out of state for a few days, and I'll come back on Wednesday and hit some schools locally again next Thursday. And so it's just recruiting. It's grind time, and trying to find those guys for your room, to get your room better, to get our team better. And that'll take us through the month of May, and then we'll have some camps and go work a few camps and have a few camps ourselves and in early June, and we'll work till probably about the middle of June there. And then Coach Dillingham being as gracious as he is, we got a little time off there from mid-June to mid-July, so we'll get about a month off to try and recharge the batteries, get away a little bit, and then come back, and it's full speed ahead after that.
Oh, absolutely. I love it. And I also love that you always have been gracious and obviously taking the time to come on a Pac-12 preview. As I do talk, like I told you, it's a Super Bowl, about every team equally and fairly, as tough as it might be, as you know, but equally and fairly as spring balls wrap up. But hey, Coach, man, I greatly appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on. Yes, enjoy your time when you get it. I know I'll see you out in the recruiting trail, but enjoy your time when you get it. And man, I'm already excited for next fall. I know I want you to have time off, but I want to get going, Coach.
Well, I'm going to enjoy that time, and I appreciate you having me as always, Michael. You're the best, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Awesome. That is Charlie Ragle. Absolutely. Go Devils. And that is Charlie Ragle, and always appreciate his time, because again, you hear it there. I mean, coaching, being assistant head coach, and yes, special teams coordinator, he's in that room. And defensively, yes, he was working with the ends out at practice. And again, just kind of looking around. And again, not that he's not paying attention to the offense, but I mean, that's his bread and butter. And I mean, Coach Dillingham going back and forth, the energy. And yes, for everybody that says, oh, I'm a football coach's wife, and spring ball is one thing, but like recruiting, I mean, it is year round. You hear that, like basically, he's like he said, talking at coaches' events, clinics, and then they'll have camps, and he'll go to camps, and then they'll host them, because so many. Obviously, a lot of universities do. Arizona is one of the great places where, yes, you can be outside pretty much all year long. Although if you're up north in Flagstaff, where NAU is, the Harvard of the Pines, as most call it, the record-setting snow this winter, they actually have seasons in Flagstaff. Down in the valley, not so much seasons. But no, so awesome that Charlie Ragle could join us again, assistant head coach. And I mean, started at Moon Valley, went to Chaparral and won a ton of games, won state championships, and then gets the opportunity with Rich Rodriguez and goes down to Arizona. Right there. See, yeah, it goes down to Arizona. And as I want to say, man, I always mess this up, but not always, but more so than Danielson, he got on the fields and he was coaching the tight ends. And then he went to right there, Cal. See the bear? You can see the bear. Bear's right there. But he went to Cal and under Justin Wilcox and was coaching the special teams. And again, just another step in his journey. Then got the head job at Idaho State, which for those of us that knew Coach, no surprise. And again, had his team up there, and you're recruiting again, yes, to Idaho State. It is different, but I always said from day one, like, it's not that he's constantly yelling and in your face, I'm not going to say rah-rah, because again, he has a personality, but he is the type of coach when I again, started covering him at Chaparral and calling games and working the sidelines or calling games. Like, there are coaches when you talk to it, after you talk to them and you're seeing film and the way they coach you, but the way they talk and the passion for the game seeps through. I mean, why else are they doing this? And yes, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm just coaching for a paycheck, because you're not going to be around for long. You'll be around, but yeah, it'll get out. But I digress. For Coach Ragle, it is just absolutely awesome. Again, what he accomplished, and then going to Idaho State and then coming back to be, you are an assistant head coach, but Coach Dillingham has started coaching when he was 17, and he was at Chaparral with Coach Ragle was coaching, and he had gotten hurt, was trying to make his way back, but just got into it, went to ASU, and then that's when he had and then he met Mike Norvell, who was, under Todd Graham, and then, went with Mike Norvell, and then was at, Florida State. And then he was at Auburn for a year. And then we saw what he did, at Oregon, but constantly, maybe Mike Norvell at Memphis too. But nonetheless, Coach Ragle, and again, you have the passion for the game. And yes, it is different personalities per se, but players want to see that you care. And Coach Dillingham just got off his, he said his presser, and he said, we're always going to be honest. And, if we feel somebody's on our depth chart and maybe they go somewhere else and they're up somebody else's depth chart and they make that step, I mean, that's a risk you take in this day and age of the transfer portal. That's why I asked Coach Ragle, like, is there a frustration to, the transfer portal? And I say I don't like to use that word, and yet I use it. I know, contradictory, but like he said, it's here to stay. And there are good things to the transfer portal because, and I'll say this, and I don't know if I said it on here before, people go play for a coach. Yes, the surrounding school and the environment, it should suit you. But anyone that says, oh, well, I mean, if a coach leaves, it shouldn't matter because you're going there, for the school. It's not. No, you're going to play for a coach and a coaching staff, how they recruited you, how they be. So if that coach leaves, he used to be able to leave and he didn't have to sit out for a year. But a player transfers, and if they went, Division I to Division I, they had to sit out a year. Now, if they drop down to Division I AA, they could play right away. Then they can transfer back to Division I. But that'd just be a multiple mess. Now, yes, in the transfer portal, you say, Michael, people in the transfer portal transfer more than once. I understand that. But I'm just saying, back then, before the portal, which if they, NCAA, God forbid you're proactive and not reactive. If you weren't able to leave because of the coach, yes, the community has to fit you. The campus has to be a fit. I'm not saying that's not a percentage of it, having been, again, not heavily recruited, but on recruiting trips and seeing it. Like, it's got to fit you. It's got to be somewhere where, okay, yes, but that coach and that staff and who I'm playing for makes that fit even more. So anyone that says, oh, they're going for a school, this is ridiculous, they've never been recruited. I'm not picking on you. I wasn't at the highest of levels, but I also know a little bit of the game and going to check out campuses and unofficial visits, official visits, but still you're going for the staff and they're going to be honest with you. And that's what, Coach Ragle says. And, you see guys leave that you're thinking, okay. And it's not that they don't want to put in the work, but you also, as a football player, understand if you're through spring and they evaluate a tape and you're all the way down on the depth chart, or this is where they have you, and they're telling you why. They don't tell us why, which nor should they. I mean, we'd always ask. They're not telling everything. But this is where you're at. This is where you're going to be. Then guess what? Now you have that choice. They can help you get somewhere else. So it is a balance. And yeah, I mean, are there some players that leave and you're like, huh, maybe fans will scratch their heads, but I get it. It's one of those things to where if you, and I say if you choose to leave and yeah, you blow up, people can say, oh, well, look, they weren't coaching them right. No, you could have somebody else that has the exact same amount of production that was ahead of that person. And you could also have that person not perform too. So yes, that's when it comes to the evaluation and the breakdown, where they're at, what they have to do. And yes, they will be playing, but maybe not to the level that they feel that they've earned, or that, well, I say should be, but in earning it, that they should be. And if they're seeing where somebody else is at. So again, always love when Coach Ragle takes the time, man. And like I said, he'll be busy the next few months. We'll aim to have him back on before the season starts. Yes. And even maybe, well, we're going to aim to have Coach Dillingham on as well, because yes, he is a very busy man as well. And once they go into quiet time, it's then they're not available, and they should be with their families, because they don't need us, bothering them when they make themselves available, visible, all that stuff. So, but we're going to step aside real quick. And when I get back, I will talk more baseball and softball. Again, I know I was talking women's golf. The women, the Lady Trojans won the Pac-12 tournament in just demolishing fashion, 15 under par. They were 7 under on in the final round. And yeah, they definitely did their job. And I mean, that to me, that's just insane, because 15 under. But for ASU, Beth Coulter finishes second. And she's a freshman. She delivered a final round of 68. She was 4 under par to finish 5 under. So she was 1 under, looking good going into the final round, and goes 4 under as a freshman to finish 5 under and in second place. In her Pac-12 championship debut, got to give a shout out to Connor Smith, the ever-talented SID, who's out there for football, but men's basketball as well, women's golf. Connor doing it all, but keeping us updated, as was the Pac-12 website. But shout out to Connor. She is the program's highest finisher since Olivia Mahaffey, who won the 2019 Pac-12 championship in a playoff. This was Coulter's first career top 5 finish. And the Sun Devil women's golf continued. This is awesome. Connor left this stat. And again, I mean, all these historic stats, but Sun Devil women's golf continues an incredible streak dating back to 2001. The program has now had a top 5 finisher in 20 of the last 21 Pac-12 championships, and an individual land in the top 10 at each of the last 21 conference championships. So Missy Farquet, who has done just a better than phenomenal job, just phenomenally, just outstanding job. As a women's head coach, I mean, getting players in here, but having these young ladies own their craft, as I say, in their game. Phenomenal job there. So shout out to Beth Coulter finishing second. Shout out to, obviously, the Trojans, Lady Trojans, just crushing it, man. You have yourself a day. I mean, when you're 8 under already, and then you go 7 under, just dominated Papago golf course. So yeah, hats off to the Lady Trojans, and and Beth Coulter as well. So we shall see what the national tournament brings, and I will be talking about it. So we're going to step aside real quick. Baseball and softball on the other side as we keep rolling here on Pac-12 Preview. All right, back here on Pac-12 Preview. I am Michael Carrottenuto. And you can reach me on Twitter at Diablo00 or hit me up in the comment. Leave your comments here. Again, questions, comments, thoughts. Again, want to thank ASU assistant head coach and special teams coordinator Charlie Ragle, friend of the program, for joining me. Again, just taking his thoughts of his first spring back here, or well, I should say at ASU, but again, back in the Valley. And again, love what he shared. If you missed it, it's all right, man. Got you covered. Twitter, YouTube, on the Sideline Sports channel. Go to my Twitter at Diablo00. Again, this will be up there so you can see Coach Ragle again. So want to thank him for coming on. But yeah, let's talk a little baseball and softball. It's going to be a huge weekend in softball. Let's start with softball first, as today and 5 p.m. Mountain Time, which in Arizona we're on Mountain Time, but we're still on the same time as Pacific. So UCLA is hosting Arizona State. UCLA, again, just absolutely rolling, crushing the top of the Pac-12. We'll get to the standings in a second. The weekend matchup there. And then Cal is taking on Stanford in that rivalry setting, Battle of the Bay Area there. Stanford's hosting Cal. UW, this is a huge one as well, too. Washington at 31-9 overall, hosting 29-8. Utah. Oh, by the way, UCLA 40-4 overall, ASU 21-17, Stanford 32-9 overall. Cal is 29-12. Washington, like I said, they're hosting Utah. They're 31-9. The Utes are 29-8. And Arizona, after their tough sweep of getting swept by UCLA at home, they hit the road to Eugene to take on the Ducks, who swept Arizona State last weekend. They are 28-11 overall as Oregon, and Arizona is 25-18. So those are the matchups today. Again, so 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific time for UCLA, ASU, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific time, Stanford and Cal, and then 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific, Washington and Utah, and then 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific, Oregon hosting Arizona. And then on Saturday, Stanford and Cal kickoff play at 2 p.m. Well, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 o'clock Eastern time. And then you have Oregon and Arizona, that'll be 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. Washington and Utah is 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific as well. And then UCLA and Arizona State are the nightcap, 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific, but it is on ESPN2 tomorrow night. So that's that. And then the Sunday to close out the series, Oregon hosting Arizona and Washington hosting Utah. Both of those games are at 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific. UCLA and ASU, UCLA hosting ASU and Stanford still hosting Cal. Both of those games are at 5 a.m. or 5 a.m. Oh, yeah, that'd be great. 5 p.m. Eastern time, 2 o'clock Pacific. And that will close out the weekend in softball. And as we look at the standings, I know I gave the records, but UCLA, that's why this Utah-Washington series is huge. And both of them, of course, are rooting for Arizona State to beat a very, very ridiculously talented UCLA team. but both Utah and Washington, yes, want to take care of business against each other, but rooting for Arizona State because let's go with the conference records. UCLA 15-3, Utah 11-4, Washington 12-6, Stanford and Oregon both 8-7. Cal is 6-8-1. Arizona State 5-10. Arizona 3-12. And then Oregon State 3-14-1. But look, so I said, so UCLA playing ASU. If ASU were to sweep, they'd be 7-10, which would just make them jump above Cal, because even if Oregon got swept by Arizona, they would be 8-10. So they still have one more victory, and plus they beat ASU. But yeah, ASU could win and jump one spot over Cal, because even if Cal were to win all three against Stanford, which don't see that happening, they would be 9-8-1. But so Utah 11-4. If they sweep Washington, yes, they would be 14-4. And that would be, again, still right there. If UCLA sweeps, they'd be 18-3. And again, just with a few weekends left, it's getting crunch time. But if, say, Washington sweeps, they would be 15-6. And then, well, I digress. If Utah sweeps, they would be 14-4. Washington would be 12-9. If Washington were to sweep, they would be 15-6, and Utah would be 11-7. Which, if Stanford were to sweep Cal, Stanford would be 11-7 as well, and they're with Utah, so Washington would jump into second place. So, I mean, you look at that. If ASU were to sweep, Washington would be right there with UCLA, because they would both be 15-6. And Utah with the sweep again, they'd be 14-4. So they wouldn't have, they'd have one less win, but they would have two less losses. So I don't know. I'd have to see the math of that, but it's all got to play out. So I'm just saying, if Utah goes 2-1 or 1-2, same thing for Washington. If UCLA goes 1-2, they're still right there. It would be amazing for ASU to get a win. And then even with Arizona going up to Oregon, we saw again how well that they have been playing, and again ranked 8th in the country. But nonetheless, UCLA ranked, Utah ranked. Actually, let's look at that. I will tell you where they're ranked at. Well, on ESPN, let's see. Oklahoma, no surprise, they are 39-1. Again, coming off a national title. They are absolutely rolling. They got all 25 first place votes, but they're number one. UCLA, number two, like I said, well, and this is games as of April 17th. UCLA won again. So they're 40-4, but coming into this week, and then after the weekend, it will be are you down? But I don't really see UCLA going anywhere. But so Oklahoma's number one, UCLA at number two, Oklahoma State at 3, Tennessee 4, Florida State rounds out the top 5, and then you have Clemson, Texas, Stanford at number 8, Washington at number 9, and then Duke at 10, Georgia at 11. Arkansas is 12, Alabama 13, Florida at 14, LSU at 15, Oregon is at 16. Northwestern at 17. Utah at 18, which kind of thinking Utah and having and granted, I've seen Utah play more than I've seen Alabama play, but I think Utah actually should be around 11. I think they should actually be right below Duke. I know Oregon, again, is ahead of Utah, but at 16. But, yeah, that's just me. Baylor at 19, and then Kentucky at 20, and then you have 21 through 25 is Auburn, Wichita, or Virginia Tech, Wichita State, Texas A&M, and Louisiana. And then Softball America, it's interesting because a little different, but they still have Oklahoma at 1, UCLA at 2. They actually have Tennessee at 3, and then Oklahoma State at 4, Florida State at 5, and then Clemson at 6, Georgia at 7, Duke at 8, and see, there you go, Stanford at 9. And then Texas at 10, Washington at 11, ahead of Arkansas, which they should be, in my opinion. And then you have Arkansas at 12, Alabama 13. You have Oregon at 14, Utah at 15, which, again, both Alabama, Oregon, and Utah all climbed in the standings. Bama went from 17 to 13. Oregon only went up 1 spot, of course, because, God forbid they stay ahead of Alabama and whatever. So Oregon at 14, Utah at 15, Baylor at 16, Northwestern at 17, LSU at 18, Florida at 19, Auburn at 20, A&M at 21, Wichita State at 22, Kentucky at 23. They have South Carolina at 24, and then Central Arkansas at 25 at 31-8. So, yeah, so Softball America. Again, I Oklahoma, UCLA 1 and 2. I mean, them both is pretty much there. But I like how I think it, not so much because I just think rankings wise settings there. So that's what we have in softball. In baseball this weekend in the Pac-12. All right, today at 6:05 Eastern time, 3:05 Pacific, Washington State will host Santa Clara. Yes, that is their, again, odd number of teams. So they're playing Santa Clara. So this won't affect any of their conference standings, but they are 22 and 13 overall. Arizona at 19 and 15. They are hosting 14 and 21 Utah this weekend. That game first pitch 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. And then Stanford and UW, 23 and 11. Stanford taking on 20 and 11 Washington. That game in Palo Alto, or the series in Palo Alto, 9:05 Eastern, 6:05 Pacific. Arizona State. They are hosting Oregon State, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific, as the 25 and 11 Sun Devils host the 25 and 11 Beavers. And the Battle of Los Angeles tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. UCLA travels across town to take on USC this weekend. The Trojans 22 and 13. The Bruins 21 and 11. And then wrapping up Friday night play, Cal, the Bears at 17 and 16 will host 24 and 11 Oregon at 10:05 Eastern, 7:05 Pacific in the again at Cal at Berkeley, and that is the weekend series. And then so Saturday, Washington State and Santa Clara, they'll lead the day off 3:05 Eastern, and then Cal taking on Oregon, and Stanford hosting Washington. Cal hosting Oregon, Stanford hosting Washington. Both of those games 5:05 Eastern, 2:05 Pacific. And then you have USC taking on or hosting UCLA again. That game, the USC UCLA game, pardon me, and the Arizona Utah game, Arizona hosting Utah in Tucson. Both of those games, first pitch 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. And then to wrap up the night, the Saturday nightcap, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific. The Sun Devils, will have host the second game against Oregon State. And then Sunday, Arizona, Utah is a 3 o'clock Eastern first pitch, 12 o'clock Pacific, and then Cal and Oregon and Washington State, Santa Clara is a 3:05 Eastern first pitch, 12:05 Pacific, and then Arizona State hosting Oregon State, the series finale, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific, and then Stanford at Washington, at Stanford in the series finale in Palo Alto, 3:05 or 4:05 Eastern, 1:05 Pacific. And then the nightcap, as you could say, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. USC is taking on UCLA, and that will wrap up the weekend. Little note, Oregon State is actually going to stay in town for one more day. So on Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, they will be headed over to Grand Canyon University to take on the Lopes. So Oregon State, so you know, program staying in town that extra day. But yeah, here are the Pac-12 standings conference overall. Up top, Arizona State, they are 11-3 in conference play, followed by Stanford, who's 11-4, UCLA 8-5-1, Oregon is 9-6, as is USC. Oregon State is 10-8. Rhymes all there. Washington at 500, 7-7. Washington State at 7-10. Arizona at 6-12. Cal at 5-13, and then Utah at 4-13-1. Overall, ASU is 25-11. Stanford is 23-11. UCLA 21-11-1, and then Oregon is 24-11. USC is a 22-13. Oregon State 25-11 overall, same record as Arizona State, and they'll be taking each other on this weekend. So very interesting series. And Oregon State being 10-8, again, 8 conference losses. Arizona State with only 3. So very interesting. Washington is a 20-11 overall. Washington State 22-13. Arizona 19-15. And Arizona, by the way, well, they beat Arizona State 20-0. There's no way. Yeah, 20-0 on Tuesday, and they needed that win. Yes, actually, I did have that in my notes if I would just read, but nonetheless. So, yeah, that's where ASU is at midweek game. Not good. They get absolutely routed. But, again, playing Oregon State. Yeah, so Arizona 19-15 overall, and then Cal 17-16, Utah 14-21-1. Again, the only team in the pack that's under 500. And Cal, again, with taking Oregon, definitely wants to at least take one of 3, although they're looking to do more. But wow, yeah, ASU just got routed by Arizona, so that was tough the other night. But nonetheless, that's where we are in baseball. So again, before we get out of here, I want to thank Charlie Ragle, ASU's assistant head coach and special teams coordinator, for jumping on with me to start the show. Again, started at 10:30. That's why we're going to 11:30 here. Had a presser that I was a part of and found out about and was in on it. So, and that was at 10 a.m. So nonetheless, thank everybody for checking in. And again, any comments, hit me up on Twitter at Diablo00. You see it right there. Everybody have a great weekend. Obviously, NHL playoffs going on. My Devils are getting hammered by the Rangers, which I said it out loud, makes me want to vomit. Yeah, not really thrilled about that. But again, 2 games in. Yes, they lost both at home, but they can still get back in this series. So enjoy hockey playoffs, enjoy NBA playoffs, enjoy obviously college softball, college baseball. I told you about it. Check out the Pac-12. It is very competitive, and this final stretch of the season in both softball and baseball is amazing. Again, shout out to the Lady Trojans women's golf, as they are Pac-12 champs. 15 under. They were 8 under coming in, 7 under again on the last day. So, yeah, absolutely phenomenal. Lady Trojans, hats off to you. Behind that, Beth Coulter finished second individually for ASU, the freshman. So congrats to her as well. And yeah, that'll be it. So I'll be back Monday. Again, same bat time, same bat channel. And yes, it will be back at 10 a.m. 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. So I will see you all Monday. Again, have a great weekend. Enjoy your sports. Be safe out there. And as always, forks up.